Hello, this is Angelia with today's Bible reading. Today's reading comes from Genesis 30, Jacob prospers. Now it came about when Rachel had borne Joseph that Jacob said to Laban, "Send me away, that I may go to my own place and to my own country. Give me my wives and my children, for whom I have served you, and let me depart. For you yourself know my service which I have rendered you." But Laban said to him, "If now it pleases you, stay with me. I have divined that the Lord has blessed me on your account." He continued, "Name me your wages, and I will give it." But he said to him, "You yourself know how I have served you, and how your cattle have fared with me. For you had little before I came, and it has increased to a multitude. And the Lord has blessed you wherever I turned." And that sometimes happens. Sometimes, you might go into a place and it's not doing that great, and you get it sevenfold better than it was. "But now, when shall I provide for you my own household also?" So he said, "What shall I give you?" And Jacob said, "You shall not give me anything. If you will do this one thing for me, I will again pasture and keep your flock. Let me pass through your entire flock today, removing from there every speckled and spotted sheep, and every black one among the lambs, and the spotted and speckled among the goats. And such shall be my wages. So my honesty will answer for me later, when you come concerning my wages. Every one that is not speckled and spotted among the goats and black among the lambs, if found with me, will be considered stolen." Laban said, "Good, let it be according to your word." So he removed on that day the striped and spotted male goats, and all the speckled and spotted female goats, every one with white in it, and all the black ones among the sheep, and gave them into the care of his sons. And he put a distance of 3 days' journey between himself and Jacob. And Jacob fed the rest of Laban's flocks. Then Jacob took fresh rods of poplar, and almond, and plane trees, and peeled white stripes, in them, exposing the white which was in the rods. He set the rods which he had peeled in front of the flocks in the gutters, even in the watering troughs, where the flocks came to drink. And they mated when they came to drink. So the flocks mated by the rods, and the flocks brought forth striped, speckled, and spotted. Jacob separated the lambs, and made the flocks face toward the striped and all the black in the flock of Laban. And he put his own herds apart, and did not put them with Laban's flock. Moreover, whenever the stronger of the flock were mating, Jacob would place the rods in the sight of the flock in the gutters, so that they might mate by the rods. But when the flock was feeble, he did not put them in. So the feebler were Laban's, and the stronger Jacob's. So, God was with him. So the man became exceedingly prosperous, and he had large flocks, and female and male servants, and camels, and monkeys. I think that's supposed to say donkeys. I'm pretty sure it is. But okay. Like I said, there's a lot of typos and smearing in this particular Bible. I'm just going to say that's been my experience with this one. But, let's see what the biblical scholars have to say about this. Where is it at? It starts here. Okay. Alright. Send me away to my own country. 14 years of absence had not dulled Jacob's acute awareness of belonging to the land God had given to him. Since Mesopotamia was not his home and his contract with Laban was up, he desired to return to my own place and my own country. Jacob's wish to return to Canaan was not hidden from Laban. I have divined. Name me your wages. On the 2 occasions that Laban asked this of Jacob, it was to urge him to stay. The first time, Laban had sought to reward a relative, but this time it was because he had been rewarded, since the Lord had blessed me on your account. Jacob readily confirmed Laban's evaluation, in that little had indeed become a multitude, since he had come on the scene. Laban's superficial generosity should not be mistaken for genuine goodness. He was attempting to deceive Jacob into staying because it was potentially profitable for him. What shall I give you? Laban wanted Jacob to stay and asked him what it would take for him to do so. Jacob wanted nothing except to be in a position for God to bless him. He was willing to stay, but not be further indebted to the scheming and selfish Laban. He offered Laban a plan that could bless him while costing Laban nothing. He would continue to care for Laban's animals, as he had been doing. His pay would consist of animals not yet born, animals which would seem the less desirable to Laban because of their markings and color. None of the solid color animals would be taken by Jacob, and if any were born into Jacob's flocks, Laban could take them. They were considered as stolen. Only those animals born speckled, spotted, striped, or abnormally colored would belong to Jacob. Evidently, most of the animals were white, sheep, black goats, and brown cattle. Few were in the category of Jacob's request. Further, Jacob would not even use the living speckled or abnormally colored animals to breed more like them. He would separate them into a flock of their own kind, apart from the normally colored animals. Only the spotted and abnormally colored offspring born in the future to the normally colored would be his. Since it seemed to Laban that the birth of such abnormally marked animals was unlikely to occur in any significant volume from the normally colored, he agreed. He believed this a small and favorable concession on his part to maintain the skills of Jacob to further enlarge his herds and flocks. Jacob, by this, put himself entirely in God's hands. Only the Lord could determine what animals would be Jacob's. To make sure Jacob didn't cheat on his good dealing, the Laban separated the abnormally marked from the normal animals in Jacob's care. Rods. Jacob was knowledgeable about sheep, goats, and cattle. Having kept his father's animals for most of his 90 years, when Laban's for the last 14 years, he knew that when one uncommonly marked animal was born with a recessive gene, he could then begin to breed that gene selectively to produce flocks and herds of abnormally marked animals, which were in no way inferior physically to the normally marked. Once he had begun this breeding process, he sought to stimulate it by some methods that may appear superfluous and foolish to us, as the mandrakes in the earlier story. But it is most likely that he had learned that when the bark was peeled, there was some stimulant released into the water that stimulated the animals to sexual activity. The word mated is literally in Hebrew to be hot, or as is said of animals, to be in heat. His plan was successful, and he kept his own flock separate from the normally colored ones of Laban. His system worked to his own advantage, not that of Laban's, who had for years taken advantage of him. Jacob gave God the credit for the success of his efforts. Because, I think it did have more to do with God than it did with, peeling bark on sticks. So, that's my opinion on that. I don't believe there was any hormone in the stick or anything like that. That's a stretch there, folks, I'm just going to say. Let's look at some supporting scriptures. Genesis 18, 9. When you enter the land which the Lord your God gives you, you shall not learn to imitate the detestable things of those nations. There shall not be found among you anyone who makes his son or his daughter pass through the fire, one who uses divination, one who practices witchcraft, one who interprets omens, or a sorcerer, or one who calls a spell, or a medium, or a spiritualist, or one who calls up the dead. For whoever does these things is detestable to the Lord. And because of these detestable things, the Lord your God will drive them out before you. And there are people still today who, are pagans and, use witchcraft and things like that. And my theory on that is, clearly they talk about it like it's a real thing here in the Bible, that it actually can be done. So, my theory on that is, though, why you want to mess with the foot soldiers that are down here just like you when you have a straight line to the commander-in-chief? Just out of that reason, it doesn't really make a lot of sense to even bother. So, that's just my opinion on that. I'm sure some people disagree with that. I've been fussed at before for not being accepting of, pagan beliefs. But it's like, why? They're down here with us. They got tossed down here with us. What are they going to do for me that God cannot do? Because God can do more than they can do. Why do I want to bother with them when I got a direct line to the commander-in-chief? Exactly. Doesn't make sense, does it? So that's the story of how Jacob prospered. Amen. Please like and share this word so we can spread it around the world. If you want to help me out, subscribe to my YouTube channel. If you want to help me out even more, go to my Patreon page and become a patron. Thanks for watching. That's all for now. Until next time.